This is Figma Freestyle. So how it works is we will go through the app Clubhouse, and I will design it right here in Figma, and you can kind of see what my process is like. I'll show you what's prepared, so what I've prepared ahead of time, such as screenshots and things like that. And then we'll kind of talk about the purpose and how we can all improve. I hope to kind of learn from this experience myself as well. And so to tell you a little bit about me, I'm the founder and a product designer at an agency called Flint. We've been focusing mostly on retail analytics over the last couple of years, and I've started working on some science-related projects as of late. I'm also the co-organizer of this meetup group, Global UXD, along with Mila, who you've probably seen on some of our other events. We're going to be using Slack as a way to communicate. So we've disabled chat here on Zoom, but if you do have a question, feel free to pop it in the Q&A section. I'll be able to review those while we kind of have this online session. But I have created a new channel in the Slack group, and the channel is called Freestyle. So if you're not part of the Slack group, go to globaluxd.com/Slack. And if you are interested in throwing some questions into the Slack channel, just look for the channel called Freestyle. And I have another device set up right here, so I'll be able to kind of go back and forth and take a look at those questions coming in. So feel free to either use the Q&A section on Zoom or the Freestyle Slack channel. Excuse me. So as I was saying earlier, like what is prepared and really what's the purpose? I'm going to zoom out here. I'm in Figma right now, and I kind of want to show you the different pages I have, how we're going to be using this overall format, and what the overall purpose will be. So I will first go to the screenshots page. There has been a lot of popularity with the app Clubhouse as of late. And if you don't have an invite or you have not been using it, I'll kind of walk you through a little bit about how it works. And there's a website that they have online, but it's still kind of in beta mode. So they say, hey, we're still opening up, but anyone can join with an invite from existing users. They're really rolling out invites pretty hard right now. I'm not by any means one of the early adopters. I've just started using it, but it's definitely very popular. And it is iOS first, like so many of the other applications. So if you have an Android, I think that you will need an iOS device to get on. If you do need an invite, feel free to, and I see some people are coming into the Slack channel, which is great. If you do need an invite, feel free to DM me. I'll try to get you on there, but I'll do that after this event. And so that's Clubhouse, and I have some additional information about what we're going to be going over and also the screens. As you can see here, I just have 4 screenshots here, pretty basic. And this is actually from a group or a Clubhouse room or session that happened earlier today with a designer by the name of Yazin Akkawi. He's based in Chicago and hosted a really, really awesome session earlier today. And the session was about UX for startups. How important, or is UX important for early stage? And so we won't be going into kind of like that topic. That's really just kind of like a screenshot for what we have as an example. But I know that Yaz hosts these pretty frequently. So I'll try to find out when the next session will be on Clubhouse, and I'll share that with the group. I did reach out to him earlier today and told him we're going to be using this as an example. Very responsive, very sharp, and nice guy as well. So they call it Clubhouse drop-in audio chat. As you can see here, we have kind of like the different folks that are on stage, so to speak. If you scroll down, and I don't have a screenshot of it, if you scroll down a little bit farther, you'll see other people that are listening in. And it's overall a pretty simplistic UI. If you click on somebody's name, their profile shows up. And I have another screenshot here, which is kind of iconic of what's going on right now with Clubhouse, and that they're hitting some major issues with scalability, which is a great problem to have. And so this is their scalability, or their, excuse me, their error message that pops up here. And so these are the screens that we're going to recreate. We're going to try to do this by the end of the hour. And I hope that I could learn from kind of the comments and feedback that are coming in, and maybe you could learn about a little bit of my design style. Just before I move on to the next screen, I see that something has come into the QA. Let's take a look. Okay, I'll answer items on QA later, but I do have Slack here. So what else do I have prepared? I have some stock photos of people that I just grabbed from Unsplash, and we'll be using that in our example. I also have some icons. Some of them I was playing around with, but a couple different icon sets here. This one I just grabbed. It's pretty loosely organized, but more importantly, I have this plugin that is called Material Design Icons. And it's definitely a new plugin that I have just been playing with today, but they have quite a bit of stuff, and we're going to try to use what we can here. If we do need to kind of create a custom icon, I have Illustrator loaded up. Maybe we could pop into there. If we could do it on Figma, that's great. And we're going to kind of go through these screens. I did start working on an example. So this is kind of like the flow that I'm going to take you through. But for the purpose of this Figma Freestyle, we're going to start from scratch. So I'm going to use this as the canvas. I'm going to be jumping back and forth from here to the screenshots as a reference. I also have the app pulled up on my phone, so I'll be able to reference that as well. But let's jump right in. And let me quickly see if there are any other questions. Let's see. Okay, cool. Somebody just wanted to invite. Great. So let's do it. So I'm going to go to a new page in Figma here. Or excuse me, Figma Freestyle. So a new blank page. There's nothing here. I'm kind of zooming in and out. And I'm just going to create a new frame. What I like to do is use like the iPhone 10 format. And so we'll start with that. I'm actually going to go into screenshots, grab this one, and bring that into my my canvas or canvas here, so I could reference it one-to-one. And the first thing I'm going to start with is the background. And so I'm just going to grab a rectangular object here and put it and throw it in here. And when I was first thinking about doing this, I was thinking like, you know, should I grab the colors? Should I eyeball it? I think it'll be a little bit more fun if we eyeball it. If there's something that's really frustrating, we'll totally grab the color. But let's just try to eyeball it. I mean, we kind of see that shade, that color right here. And I think something like that should be good enough. So now we have this background, and if the contrast is not very high, don't worry about the background color. I'm just gonna adjust it a little bit here. That way we can kind of see where the artboards are. So I have the background. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna rename this frame to just screen 1. And I'm actually gonna lock this rectangle here because I know that we're gonna be moving around a lot of objects on here, and I want to kind of lock it in place. And I'm going to just rename this to reference for my own sanity here. Okay, so one thing that is very unique about Clubhouse, and if we zoom into Yaz's profile, we'll see that, and maybe I'm crazy, let me know if you guys think otherwise, but these are not exactly rounded squares. I think they're technically squircles, right? And so it has a little bit more of just a rounded. It's kind of, if you take a rounded square and like blow it up a little bit, that's how they come up to that shape. And so I'm going to just start with maybe just start with a rounded square, and then maybe we could play a little bit more with that later. But I'm just going to create a square here, approximate size. And I won't copy it yet because I want to start adding some of the other elements before I do that. So I'm just going to grab my text tool here and start typing Startup Club. and move this over. It's a little bit too big, so I'm going to reduce the size, maybe even more. And the font here, I don't know exactly what it is, but it looks a lot like Quicksand to me. So I'm going to just use Quicksand for the purpose of this demonstration. Now, I didn't, I don't have to use this reference one-to-one, but I can kind of go over here and use my, not the move tool, but the scale tool to kind of make it a little bit smaller and move it up and see that that's the approximate size. And so now bring this, now bring this back. Now I will say when I was first looking at this, the word Startup Club to me here looks like the kerning is a little bit spaced out. Even though I just pretty much had the text overlaid, it still doesn't look right to me. So I am going to space it out maybe like 10%, and let's see what happens when I move it. That looks a little bit better to me. Maybe I should move it down to 10, 15%, but for now that's fine. And there's an icon to the right of it. I'll bring that in later. I'm going to move this down a bit. And I'm going to create a new text element here, and I'm going to call it UX for startups, and make sure I remove that effect, make it left aligned. I want to make this one left aligned too. Move this over. So UX for startups is UX important for early stage. Great, and they do have an emoji here. So let me grab the rocket, one of my frequently used emojis. The spacing is a little bit, or the font size needs to get a little bit bigger. So let me try 18, and looks like that's too big. I'll go back to 16. And if you notice, it cuts off at the 4. So, as we kind of continue to develop this, this UI, we'll probably want to do more than just kind of have a line break here. But for the purpose of just like a one-to-one mock-up, I'm going to take a lot of shortcuts here. Then I would go back and kind of clearly define what that width would be, what these margins are. But for now, I kind of want to get moving. So we'll kind of touch those elements a little bit later. So I have the name. I have one element. This is probably the next thing I want to work on. But I noticed that there's this like second background layer that I'm going to want to add right now. So I'm going to get another rectangular view and bring that in. That looks white to me. It might not be exactly white, but I'm going to use white. I'm going to change the top to, let's see, 20 is not enough. Let's try 30. Getting closer, maybe 40. That looks like it could be 35 actually. So I feel good with 35. So let's do 35 on both sides. Okay, see, now I did both sides and it almost looks like it's too much. So let's go back down to 30. I can grab it, move it over, see if it's one-to-one, but not something I want to do exactly right now. I just changed the positioning of the layers. Now, at this point, I'm starting to realize like my elements on the left side are starting to get a little bit messy. So I'm going to call this background. It's locked. And then this I'm going to call, let's just call it overlay because technically it's an overlay. And let's lock that guy too. And then, so this rectangle is a work in progress. So let's work on that. Really quick, I actually want to put this all rooms here. And I'm missing some icons, but I'll bring those icons in. And let me remove the bold. Okay, that doesn't look good. Is there a semi-bold here? Let's see, bold, no semi-bold. I have some issue with the typeface, but that's okay. Okay, so I feel better about that. Let me make it smaller to 14. Spacing is a little bit off, and now that I have some additional elements on there, that color that I chose for the background, it seems like it's a little bit off. So let me kind of get it a little bit closer now that I have more elements, and that looks a little bit better. So now let's tackle the profile photos here. And this is interesting because at first glance, it looks very simple, but as you kind of see, there's like some sort of overlay stroke that's not a fixed color. So probably has the multiply effect or something like that. And as you hear for this person named Zessie, she is actually speaking in this conversation right now. So there's that additional kind of layer stroke around her profile photo. So let's start simple with just the moderator. That's what this little mark is. And I'm just gonna make it a rounded square. So start with 40. That's way too much for the size that we're looking at. That looks a little bit better. Maybe 32. Okay, I feel at peace with that. Let's just start there. And I'm starting to see that it's a little bit bigger than what I have on the other side. So I actually don't want to just use the move tool, because if I do that, it's going to maintain my corner radius at 32. So for adjusting the size, I'm going to want to use the scale tool. And as I'm doing this, I'm realizing like a lot of people are really crazy fast wizards with some of the keyboard shortcuts and stuff. I'm doing copy and paste, so I'll try to mention any of the keyboard shortcuts I'm doing. But if there's something I'm not doing that I could totally be saving a lot of time, go ahead and throw it in Slack. I'd love to do that. I was working with a very brilliant designer, and she would oftentimes not use shortcuts at all, kind of like go back up to the menu bar, and still very efficient, but it really kind of, it irks me to say the least. But so if I'm doing anything like that, you have a shortcut that's faster for me, definitely let me know. I'd love to be able to kind of learn about that and move faster. So let's see. So to continue working on this element, I'm going to grab, I'm just going to copy and paste, bring this down. To start, I'm just going to use Yaz's name, and I'm going to remove that 10%. Maybe make this a little bit smaller. And oops. Okay, looks like we got some. Okay, somebody said it looks like you use the iPhone 10 format, but it looks like you got 11 Pro/10. Why would you start with that format? So the reason I started with that format is because that's the phone I'm using. And when I had screenshots here, I believe it just kind of went one-to-one. And so definitely a great question. And actually, when I was starting with that, I was thinking, when I'm usually approaching a completely new iPhone build, I do like to go with like the old school 4-inch display size and then build outwards. But I didn't want to do that here. And so that's why I chose the iPhone 10. For Preson, who said that I can use the eyedropper, definitely a good tip. And I do love using the eyedropper, but I kind of wanted to avoid doing that right now. But if it's something that's kind of irking you, then I'll start using it, because I guess it doesn't make sense why I wouldn't use it, right? But especially if we want to move fast. So I'll start using it. If you have any other tips for me, send them my way. Okay, cool. So let's get back to it. So there's an icon here, which is the mute icon. And so I'm going to use that plugin that I was playing around with today. And it's called Material Design Icons. And I'm just going to search for Mike, and let's see what comes up. Okay, so I have the material. So this is based off material design. The material design icon looks pretty similar. So for now, I'm just going to grab it. And what I might do is I might change that slash to be red. But for now, I'm just going to enclose it in that circle that it's in. And if you notice that circle, and I'll make this white, move it below, and I'll change this ellipse to microphone circle. If you notice what they've got here, they've got a shadow on that that circle. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on the element. I'm going to click on effects, and drop shadow, you'll see that that's kind of a crazy one. So I'm just going to go to the settings. I'm going to completely remove the blur. So make that 0. And then I see that it's a little bit too far down on the y-axis. So it changes to 1. And it's starting to look a lot closer to what I see right here. Maybe just changes to 10%. And I feel pretty good about that. It looks pretty good. And you can see that. So technically, their shadow kind of goes up to here, whereas mine ends here, and theirs does fade a little bit. So maybe I should change the blur to something very loose, like what is the metric there? It is 1. So I've set it to a blur of 1, and I see that the shadow does creep up a little bit now. So I think that's a little bit better. I'm going to grab both of these elements, make them a little bit smaller, and move it down here. And let's see what I've got. Okay. So I am feeling a lot better about the way this is looking, but let's get a photo in there. So I've captured some stock photos, and I think that this first one that I have is a good example because the background is lighter and I'll have less contrast there. So got these photos from Unsplash. I'm just going to copy the photo from this frame I have, go back to my example. There's a couple different ways I can do this. So I just kind of clicked on my element here and pressed paste. What I did here was I created a mask. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. For now, this actually looks like it input pretty well, but it's still missing something. Excuse me. So what it's missing is this little gray stroke. So the first thing I'm going to try is I'm just going to click on stroke outside, and then I'll use the, well, actually that's maybe a little bit too small to use the eyedropper. So I'm just going to use a gray, lighten it. Actually, maybe I'll make it a little bit darker and then lower the opacity to like 20. And it's still a little bit too thick. So maybe I can make it 0.5. And that, oops, and that does look a little bit better. Maybe almost, can I even do, let's see, 0.75 looks a little bit better. And that way, you know, what I'm interested, so that way, if the profile photo background, it has a blue tint, my stroke actually is gray with a lower opacity. So it should at least fit or conform a little bit more to the background of that image I have here. And so I feel pretty good about that. Now, one thing that's missing is the moderator element, but before I create that, I'm gonna just move the text up a little bit, and I'm gonna select all of these elements here, and I'm gonna group them. And so I usually group by just pressing Command G, and I'm just gonna call this profile photo, and then it's muted. So I'll say that it's muted. And now I'm going to scroll back again. Let me quickly see what kind of, usually Zoom questions pop up, but let's see what people say. The display seems to indicate, oh yeah, we already answered that. Let me actually press answer live on some of these. And have you used Sketch? If so, which tool do you think has a better interface, Sketch or Figma? Okay, cool. So to answer that question, let me click answer live on that. I love Sketch, right? So after working in Photoshop and Illustrator for so long, once Sketch came out, I'm not going to lie, it was a little bit hard for me to say, okay, I got to start using Sketch exclusively. And I did for a long time. And I started learning to love a lot of the elements. But I think when Figma came around, especially after they started refining it, it pretty much has everything I do in Sketch is now on Figma. And there were a couple things like, you know, scalability or opportunities with typography that you could actually do more with Figma. And so for me, the fact that it's browser based, it's super fast, and there's we're not excluding those who are kind of joining on Windows machines, which I know Adobe XD has taken a big market for. Figma is definitely my kind of program of choice now, especially over Sketch. And I haven't even touched Sketch in quite a while, probably over a year now, just because everything I need to do is in Figma. So if you're wondering about Figma versus Sketch, I'm going to try to tell you, like, go to Figma as soon as you can. So okay, cool. So I'm going to move this title a little bit higher. Startup Club is starting to look a little bit small to me, or big to me, so I'm going to move it. And let me actually match the colors now. So we have a balance, and I did see it adjusted a little bit. I'm going to lock this layer again. And cool. So what I've done is I've grouped this element for the profile photos, and I'm going to just copy and paste, and they've got about 3 in each row, and I'm going to move them over. I'll change the names eventually and create more rows. And now that I do that, let me actually see what, let me actually bring this guy over and see that I can actually expand it by just a hair. So let me make it a little bit bigger. And because I made that one bigger, these two are smaller. So I'll just quickly delete these, move this one back over, copy and paste twice, move it over, select these guys, and I want to distribute evenly on a horizontal level, and probably move things a little bit higher up. Now, something looks a little bit off because maybe I need to move this up. If I move this a little bit higher, now that I think about it, one thing I haven't used too much in Figma are the rulers. And so I found myself pressing like Command R to bring up rulers, because I could actually, rulers would be very helpful right now. And I guess I haven't thought about that. So if you guys know how to bring in some rulers, let me know. Otherwise, I'll just kind of keep going here. And I feel like I've seen it in one of these options. Yeah, I don't know. If you do know how to bring up rulers, let me know. But I'm just gonna move these guys a little bit farther up. And great. So I'm missing a couple icons now, and that's pretty important when I want the overall look and feel to kind of bring me what I need. So the first icon I'm going to try to find is this pretty basic chevron. So going back to that plugin, I'm going to just search arrow and see what comes up. And there we go. So it does have a pretty nice arrow icon here. It did something weird though, because I have this frame here, but the icon, I'm gonna just, but I don't want the icon to be in a different frame. So I'm just gonna cut the icon out of that frame, click on that frame, delete it, go back to screen 1, the frame I'm working on, and then paste. And now it brought it directly into my frame. So I'm going to move this over here. Looks like it needs to be bigger. So, excuse me, I'm going to move all rooms over, expand this a little bit. And I notice I don't have my scale tool. I'll expand it with my scale tool. Go back to move tool. And is that too big? That looks about right to me. And maybe making these 15 now. Cool. So I think that is sufficient for what I'm looking for. The other icon I need is some sort of document icon. Now, I noticed that the icons in Clubhouse are kind of unique. So it has a kind of a thicker stroke on the outside, and I haven't really seen that. It looks kind of cool, but we can try to replicate that. So first, I'm just going to search document or page and doc. Let's see, what would that be? Page. Page kind of brings up some close ones. I don't want to go digging through this material design icon set. I'm pretty sure material design does have some sort of page like that, but that's totally fine. I do have, I did create it here, but I did, oh, here we go. There is a page here. So I'm going to just copy this, bring it back into my doc. I will paste it here, make things a little bit smaller just to kind of match the size approximately. And I notice already it's a little bit of a different icon, but that's okay. Move it here. What I can do is I can easily just double click. It's a vector shape and delete these guys since we don't use them. Out of curiosity, if I increase the stroke, it actually does the entire element. So I can go in and customize things, but for now, I'll just leave it as that. And notice that the little page being curved over is a little bit bigger on the actual, but we'll use that for now. I'm just going to copy just this rectangle here with the profile photo and make it smaller and use that for the profile photo that we have up here. Looks like another question came in. Let me get this out of the way and let's see. And it looks like the spacing is a little bit larger than what I would initially imagine it to be, but let's bring this here. And I see that there's another icon here, and that's just the 3 dots. So let's jump in and see what question that is. And new question from Dave. Don't worry, there's no bad questions. Why would you ever need to copy an existing screen that you are demonstrating? Is there an image copy feature that could copy the whole screen? Well, if we're talking about the left screen versus the right screen, this is just a screenshot. So this is directly from the app. And the reason, I guess the purpose of what we're doing here is like, sure, we're recreating it now, but let's say you had a vision from thumbnail sketches or maybe a component from another app that you wanted to bring in. That's when we would kind of copy that or recreate it, or let's say create something new. So if anything, I think the big benefit is that you might see a UI like you do on the left side, and you might wonder, how is that exactly created? This is a nice way to kind of visualize what that could look like. And yeah, good question. If you have any other questions, bring it in. Oh, and Preson just told me that that icon is called file on the plugin or on material design. So let's see if it looks good. Okay, so because it's filled in. I'll just kind of continue to use the one I have here, but thanks for finding that one. Okay, cool. So let me do these quick 3 dots. These are super easy to do. You pretty much just bring in the ellipse tool and I'll make it exactly. A lot of times it's not black but a dark gray that's being used, and just kind of overlay that, move this over, and then a third one here. Select them all, group them, cut it, and bring it in and move it right, I think, in alignment with that profile photo, and also Startup Club here. Now, what I'm missing is this little house icon. And if I go to my icon set, I don't have anything like it. And I mean, other than that one that I just recreated. And then if I go to material design, I did start looking up house and nothing came up for house or building. If you do know, if there is anything like that, please let me know and I could try to grab it. Otherwise, what I was thinking we can do is actually go into the screenshot go into the screenshot. Home. Let's see how home works. Person is helping me out with the material design icon names. Let's see, home. Oh, that looks pretty good actually. Let's bring that in. And so, yeah, so instead of recreating it, let's bring that in. And it's interesting because, oh, it looks like it brought it in one of the frames from the mic I have here. Let me see if I could just remove that. And then, oh, my drive file frame is still there too. Okay, so now this should just be floating. I'm gonna bring this in over here. Let's see if I can edit it. So I just double clicked here and, oops, I don't wanna do that. I think I should be able to grab my pen tool and adjust things. Oh, this might get a little bit messy. I'm not too familiar with what's going on here. Let's see. Can I do that? And then this guy, delete it, create another one, bring it up here, done, and let's fill it in. Okay, make the color darker. That looks much closer. So let me cut, move over to the reference. The sizing is definitely off. So let's try to shrink this guy a little bit. Move it over here. And a little bit bigger, a little bit flatter. It doesn't necessarily have rounded edges, but oh, that's way too much. But maybe if I do give it like can I do like a 0.25? It looks a little bit better. This is pretty pixelated. So if we are looking at a vector, make it green, make it just a little bit shorter. I feel pretty good about that. So let's copy it over and bring it in. Oops, press on screen 1. And there we go. And let me try to move it down. And let's see. Okay, let me remove that extra one and that one. Okay, so it's starting to look a lot more like the other side. When it comes to the profile photos, keep in mind that somebody was speaking there and we don't have that designation. So we'll create that. And from a time perspective, time is flying by, but a lot of you or all of you have stuck with me. So thank you for that. Let me straighten this out. For the purpose of this example, I'll change the names, but before I do, let me just throw that guy in there, copy and paste and bring it down to make it more like the reference file, about 27. And I'll kind of straighten things out later, but let's grab this text, bring it down here and call it followed by the speakers. Now that's actually so this element here is scrollable, and followed by the speakers is the title of the next group of profile pictures. So I actually don't have a screenshot with any of those profile pictures in there, but let's bring it in anyways. Remove that kerning and let's grab this color 1-for-1. And let's see. Okay, so followed by the speakers. Maybe make it a little bit bigger. Let's give it 14. It's way too big. Let's just say 12. Not 2, 12. Okay, cool. Expand the text box a little bit. Okay. And so there's a couple other things here. Let's quickly create the leave quietly button, which we have right here. Let me make sure the vertical size is about right. That's good. I'm going to give this like, 40. Okay, that's good. Let's make the color the same. And this time, leave quietly is in red. So let's call it leave quietly. And let's make sure we have the same red color. And it looks like there's a typo, but there's not. I think that's just the difference in the typography. So it looks like they're not quite using quicksand, but for me, it's close enough for now. And make this a little bit smaller. Let's see if I have the emoji thumbs. Is that, or I guess it's peace sign. Let's see. It's covering my screen, so I don't see. I'm just going to choose that one. And widen this. And one thing is that it's a lot bigger in size. Actually, instead of the scale tool here, because this is all text, I'm just going to make this 14 and move this over, center it. Okay, and do actual center there, and then copy, actually cut, and then move that over to screen 1. And there it is. I got to move it up a little bit. And now looking at this, it's kind of strange that the followed by is offset. But one thing that we're not seeing here is that there is kind of like a fade out right above this, like a gradient. So you don't see that here because, again, it's a scrollable element. But for now, that's fine. And let's bring in the circles. And to match the height, I have 34 here, and that's 33 what I created. So I'll just make it 34. So it matches, grab the color, move this over, and there's actually 2 elements. And here you can see that other icon, the one with the hand raised, so like that it has that element I was talking to you about with like a more thicker stroke on the outside, on the perimeter, but then on the inside, it has a little bit less. And this is actually quite a nice icon because it also tapers off a little bit as it goes down. So you could definitely tell they've thought about their iconography. For the purposes of this example, let's just go to plugins and bring up, this is a shortcut I got to use to bring the last plugin up. But okay, so let's see plus sign. And let's see. Looks like they don't have an icon. Maybe they're just using the text. Let's see what the text looks like for quicksand. It looks a little bit, it's a lot thicker for me. So let me just go into my icons and grab one. I could also very easily make one. So I kind of see this element here. I'll just paste it again, move it, and bring these guys. And let's see if I could merge them together now, and perfect. So back to, and also the color is not exactly black. So let's grab that color, darker gray. Oops, what did I do? Oops, I accidentally deleted the whole screen. Okay, so grabbing this icon, let's see, stick with me here. We are gonna add this icon, and if there's any type of hand icon that I can grab, let's see if there's anything here first. We got thumbs up. I guess that is also part of an emoji. So I guess they kind of customized an emoji, the wave emoji. And before I'm pretty sure it's not a material design icon. No, and no. So let's see. Let's bring in the text tool and call it wave. Oh, the wave actually looks different there. I could probably customize that. Let's do that in Photoshop. But before we do that, I'm just going to drop that there. What we need to do is add this kind of stroke around the speaker. If they're speaking, they won't have a mute microphone button, so I'll remove that. And for the purposes of this demo, I'll just bring back, I'll just bring the speaker's actual name. And let's actually grab another photo and go back in here and see if I can replace, replace that. Let's see, why is, okay. Okay, what I'll do very quickly is just shrink this, move this over. I think I could remove the photo there. Where is that photo? profile photo. No. Oh, there's so many of these here. So let's call this speaker. I should be able to grab the photo and remove it. So let me just quickly take a screenshot here, swap out the image, and that should be the fastest way to do it. Okay, cool. So close this out. This is the speaker. Now, we already have a stroke here, and I don't believe we have the ability to add multiple strokes. Let me see really quick. If I add another stroke, okay, it just changes the existing stroke type. So instead of adding another stroke, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this rectangle element, move it over here, remove the image from it, and make it just a little bit bigger. So expand it, move it back. Maybe that's too big. And notice that here there's the original stroke, there's some space, and then there's the kind of like the speaker color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the fill of that element to this light or white color. It looks like it's exactly white. And then I'm going to change the stroke, which was originally 20% here, make it 100. I got to remove this so we don't have a gradient, and grab that color, and oops, I did the wrong fill. So let me go back, make sure I got the right element here, move this over. Okay, and now the stroke is the color that I want to match here. So why is this not? Oh, it did work. Okay, it just needs to be a little bit thicker. So let's try 2, and that's looking a lot better. I'm just going to ungroup everything really quick. And before I do that, let's just check in the questions that came in. So we have a question. How much of another company's screen do you think is safe to copy without getting a copyright violation? So that's a great question, right? Obviously, if we were to ship this app on the right here, there would be some problems there. But I would say that if it's an element that you've seen before, then it's definitely something that you can take. If it's something that's very unique and custom, such as these icons, that icon is like art that they have created themselves. So that's probably not something I would take. If it's something like just having circular buttons with a plus sign there, that's fine. I should preface by, I don't know exactly what the copyright laws are, and definitely no official legal advice here. But I think the general rule of thumb is just that if it's something that is a little bit more generic or non-obvious to what you're using as a reference, it's totally fine. If it's something where you've only seen in that particular app or design and it's pretty unique to them, or it goes as far as having kind of like a special artist or illustration to create it, such as iconography or something like that, then I would definitely not bring it into your own app. You could definitely be inspired by it. And the nice thing is that, just like, for example, we're referencing UX for startups, like Startup Club, Yaz's group. A lot of people are accessible. So I reached out to Yaz earlier today. He got back to me within an hour. So if you're unsure of it, I would definitely say, try to find another option or ask. Yeah, so good question. Keep them coming. I have another one here from Anita. When you're copying design elements from other platforms, is there anything to be careful about? Oh, okay. Is that always allowed, or could copyright be an issue? Okay, great. So 2 of the same questions came out at the same time. So hopefully I did a good job to answer that. And let's kind of go back in here and finish what we were doing with the thickness of this element. I think it actually needs a stroke of 3. That's looking a lot better to me. But one thing I do notice is that, and it looks like that stroke is still there. And it's just a little bit less evident because of the contrast here. One thing that looks a little bit off to me is the spacing. So I'm going to ungroup all of these, and then I'm going to grab these two and then center them a little bit, and actually move this up just a dash and copy it there. And now zooming back, it's starting to look pretty close. Of course, iconography, is a little bit different. I don't have the standard iOS toolbars, which I could grab from a couple different places. I think I'm using pretty much black for the text here, but this is a dark gray, so I'll copy that and lighten it up a little bit. I could probably do that for all the text here. The only other thing, and it looks like we're just about to come up on time, is this icon. So I guess based off of what I just said, we don't want to copy icons if we're using them for our own purposes. But for this example, let's say we did want an icon similar to an emoji. I would probably just grab something like this, take a screenshot of it. I'm going to move over to Illustrator here and place that screenshot I just took of the waving hand emoji, put it here, and for reference, let's actually grab this guy too and place that as well. And I could copy directly from the actual icon we're looking at, but let's say there's another emoji that you want to take a look at. I would just kind of go in here, lock that layer, see if I can just do this really quick because I know we're coming up on time. Give this guy all the fingers. Make sure that we swap some colors here. And it's going to be a little bit choppy, but that's okay. It's going to be a smaller icon. Bring this up here. And again, it's not going to be exactly like the icon we see on the left, but just a reference. Okay, and now let's increase the stroke on this guy. Definitely does not look as elegant. What I would do in a situation like this is rasterize this in kind of a weird way just by taking a screenshot just to be fast. Place it again in here and do an image trace, 3 colors. Does that give me anything? So you'll notice it's kind of smoothed it out a little bit. Still doesn't look as elegant at all. So I don't even know if we're going to use this. Let me see if I can utilize what we were talking about with image trace a little bit more. Take a screenshot of a lower res version, place it here. Oh man, this is not looking good. Image trace, let's do low fidelity this time. Okay, see, that looks a little bit cleaner, at least, right? So I'm going to take this now, expand, take some of the elements from behind it. I'll move it over here. Oops. I'll move it over here so you guys can see. Kind of cut what we have here. Where is it going? Okay. And let's see, wrong cut. There we go. And now make it black. And now just a new file real quick. Move it in here. Change the artboard size. Save it as an SVG. Let's call it hand. Now move over to Figma. Replace that emoji with this new icon that we just created called hand. And again, not as elegant, but we're doing it kind of fast. A good starting point. And we're almost at time. This has been great. It took a lot longer to build out this screen than I had originally anticipated, but I think that we did look at a lot of the specific details pretty closely. And so hopefully this was helpful. Let me just quickly reference if there are any other questions. Dave asks, does Figma have a tool to draw an SVG icon? It does. It has a pen tool. I'm just not as familiar with it as some of the other tools, or as not as familiar with it as some of the tools in as Illustrator. But it's actually it looks to be actually pretty nice. And not to say that I'm drawing this hand nicely right now, but it looks like I might have even been able to have a more desirable result if I spent more time working on that in Figma. So yeah, such a powerful tool. You wouldn't even need Illustrator to do what we did, but definitely a good question. Another question, is Figma free to use? Definitely. I know they have a couple limits for sharing, or if you kind of grow, but that's about it. Anonymous says, thank you so much. I learned a lot today. Awesome. Keep in mind, we have been recording this, so we'll throw this up on the Global UXD YouTube channel. If you can't find it in YouTube, we'll create a short link and send it out to the attendees. I will also take this Figma file and share it. So that way, if you do want to go in here, reference how the layers are organized, or how we did things, please feel free to jump in. And that's about it. If you have any other questions, you can find me on Twitter at just my name, Alex Shirazi, or on the Global UXD Slack channel. We got another question that came in. Okay, cool. Great. And if you don't have access to the Slack channel, just go to globaluxd.com/Slack. We've been talking in the freestyle channel, but thank you so much. We'll see you guys next time.